Welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modis. This podcast is about living and playing in the great outdoors, especially down this way in the most southern region of the continental United States, the Florida Keys. Catch Outdoors is hosted by Spotify, also brought to you by your favorite podcast network. So kick back and get a taste of my Florida. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 107, a week of fishing. So, yes, lots of fishing. Yeah, I do what you know, right? As they say in books, write what you know, that sort of thing. So, yeah, fishing is definitely the subject this week. Weather's gotten so good and rain's gone, temperatures are down, water temperatures are good. We'll get at all that in a little bit here. But first, some Keysy news, as I call this. In the aftermath of Jimmy Buffett's passing, there has been lots of news down this way about how to honor the troubadour of island life. A lot of excitement about this new album that'll be released in November, getting closer and closer. I'm certainly looking forward to it. 3 songs from the album have been released for downloads, and I have to say I like all 3 of them, especially Bubbles Up. Hard not to cry. No, I've gotten past that now. You get that watery eyes. That song's amazing. It was written for this occasion, obviously. Jimmy's last message to all of us to carry on and do what we do and enjoy doing it. So anyway, if you haven't heard Bubbles Up, jump on one of your favorite music services and take a listen. You'll see what I'm talking about. The man who wrote and co-wrote alongside Jimmy for close to 40 years is coming to Key West for live shows, Mac McAnally. In his own right, Mac has penned songs for a whole mess of singers and bands over the years, including Alabama, Shenandoah, Sawyer Brown, T.G. Shepherd, Kenny Chesney, and, of course, Buffett, and many others, actually. Every now and then you'll hear a song, and I'm all about looking at the credits when I hear something I really like. I always like to see who the songwriter was. You'd be surprised how many songs he's written, not to mention performed on. He's a hell of a musician. So in the Memphis and Nashville and those areas that do a lot of recordings, Mac is an instrumental person in doing instruments. No pun intended. Get those words. But yeah, it's just amazing what he's done over the years. Let's see. He's had his own hits on Billboard Hot 100. He's coming to Key West. The news for this was he was going to do 2 shows originally, and it was big news down this way. I guess because he's kind of a direct connect to Buffett. I got online at 12 noon the afternoon the tickets went on sale. Managed to grab 2 for the Friday show. Both days sold out in about 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a big deal here in the Keys. A few days later, Mac decided to add another day that you could only buy tickets by personally going to the box office, standing in line at the Key West Theater. And those tickets disappeared in less than just the morning. I mean, basically whoever was in line got tickets. So they added another day. Yeah, they did. So we got 2 days online, 1 day in line, and then they added another online day for Sunday. So now it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and those sold out in minutes again. So, yeah. So basically what amounted to about a total of maybe 3 or 4 hours, the whole thing sold out in 4 days, which is, that's Mac. For those of us that know him and love him, that's how it works now. Also, he is performing. This is going to be, I think it's in January. I got to go back and check my calendar, but I'm pretty sure this is a January series of shows here in the Keys, in Key West. And I went and looked at all the available other places that he has already announced playing even before that, all around the eastern United States, and all of them are sold out. So there you go. I mean, again, it's that direct connection to Buffett and the songs that he wrote for Buffett. Obviously, he's going to perform that stuff, and he performs a lot of the other things that he wrote for other artists. So I'm not at all surprised that this happened as quickly as it did. I feel lucky and happy to be going, to be honest with Janelle. We're both pretty excited about this. And even without Jimmy, Mac is a wonderful performer. I want to tell you right now, he's got a library of songs, like I said, written over the years. Janelle and I were fortunate to have seen him play not long ago. The 20th anniversary of the Hogfish Bar and Grill on Stock Island. That Stock Island is considered a little bit of eastern Key West, if you will. The place was packed. The music was great. Free show. They were basically celebrating the 20-year anniversary of that restaurant. It was extremely popular, probably the most popular restaurant on that end of the island by far, and maybe one of the most popular in the Key West region. Boy, delicious seafood. So anyway, that to me was a sign, and I just can't wait to see him again. The iconic Pepe's restaurant in Key West was featured on a recent post from the Florida Keys and Key West Facebook page. Those of us who know that is one of the best places to eat anywhere in the Florida Keys. It also happens to be the oldest continually operated restaurant in the Keys and the second oldest in Florida. Well, you should have seen the hits and responses on that post. I was following it. All 100% positive. That was the cool part. There were over 12 million people reached in the post. And I don't know how many liked it. I really don't. I forget the number now. Last time I looked at it, it was in the thousands, but it was really cool. Who knew? It's Janelle and I, every time we go there, we use the parking lot across from Pepe's. There's a public parking area that's fairly easy to get in and out of. It's expensive. I'm not going to fool you with that, but or kid you either way. But it's a good place to be, and it's right across the street from Pepe's. So if you don't know what I'm talking, I think I've mentioned this before, and probably I'm sure I have. If I was talking about restaurants in the Keys, I would obviously have listed this as one that you should go. But it's really interesting. I've dined there many times. Breakfast. I don't think I've ever done lunch. I've done breakfast and dinner there. The breakfasts are wonderful. They have the most wonderful Bloody Marys on the planet, if not the Keys. Yeah, and those sort of kind of things you might need one morning after a late night in the Keys. But my favorite dinner there is it's called steak smothered in pork chops. Yeah, bring a friend or two to help you out with that one. So anyway, the fishing report doubles as the feature subject of this week's podcast. But first, let's do some fishing news. There's an awful lot to talk about. My email was blazing with all kinds of stuff, not to mention friends' remarks about it. And in some cases, they're discussed. But we'll talk I'm going to cover all this for you. So here we go. The powers that be, namely Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, a.k.a. the FWC is what they're referred to by us. They set down some fishing rule changes over the past week. And the emergency one happens to be about closing the gag grouper season early. Yes, that would have been a normal close on January 1st. I believe that's right. Yeah, we get a chunk of winter. That's when the grouper move in close. That's why it was set that way. So now they're going to close it on October 19th in Gulf state waters and on October 23rd in Atlantic state waters. So even if the grouper were going to move as the water cooled off, we're not going to get a shot at it. If you go for them right now, you have a slim chance of catching a nearshore grouper, especially over on the Gulf Coast. Right now, it's too warm. This is, it's commercial related. I mean, commercial fishing is big in Florida, and it puts a lot of food on tables down here, especially in these fancy restaurants. And gag grouper happens to be a very popular dish and has been for decades. Yes, decades and decades. May I kindly suggest that when going to a seafood restaurant, please do me a favor, order mahi or yellowtail snapper or something more plentiful from our waters. The grouper have been hammered long enough. Or do what I do. Order steak at a seafood restaurant. Steak smothered in pork chops. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you'll get a few stares, but you're doing your part. Try the baby back ribs at Bayside Grill and Sunset Bar here in Key Largo. They're awesome. they're kind of, they're in the menu, all this seafood stuff, all this good seafood stuff. And then all of a sudden you'll see these baby back ribs. And I'm a sucker for baby back ribs. So, of course, I had to try it. And it's absolutely, they're delicious. They're cooked perfectly there. And they're cooked. They're not that, take them out of the freezer and warm them up in the microwave stuff. These things are really delicious. Burgers at the fish house. I know. Funny story. Yeah, go to the fish house and have a burger. Yeah, and it's really fun. I'll tell you a story. Janelle and I were actually really burnt out on seafood, and we went to the fish house for dinner one night. That means we're burnt out on cooking at the house too. We're just like, let's just go out somewhere and get something to eat. So, and that happens about once a week. We just look at each other and go, let's just go do it. Go figure, right? It's close. The fish house is right down the street from us. Has a great staff, wonderful bartenders that are fun to talk to. So we ordered one. We're sitting there at the bar. We ordered burgers. I wish you could have seen the stares. The bartenders loved it. They were like, "This is what you really should do," because the burgers in that place are really, really good. And but the people next to us, on either side of us at the bar, were like, "What in the hell are these people doing? This is the greatest seafood restaurant in Key Largo, and it may be one of the best in the Florida Keys." And they just ordered hamburgers and fries. There's a prime example. Save the environment. Save our fish. Order a burger when you go out to a seafood restaurant. Mess with people's heads. It's fun. Here comes the punchline now on the gag grouper early closing. On October the 1st, the FWC began accepting applications for the 2024 open season for Goliath grouper, formerly known as Jewfish. Right, so we have to close one grouper because of overfishing by commercial means, and then open one that I believe should stay closed. Okay, so there you go. Y'all can yell at me, send me ugly emails. I really don't care. I'm old, and I'm set in my ways. I think Goliath grouper, harvesting them is, I don't know. It's a limited harvest. It's like they're trying to appease people by doing this, which is what really irritates me. They close the gag grouper down for what I guess is a good reason. I mean, simply it's been overfished, and not by recreational anglers, I might point out. But this seems to me a good way for the FWC to make a bunch of money, I guess. I sat down and did the math. Oh boy. Are you ready? Okay, grab your pencils. Let me explain how this opening works. First, there's a lottery. And that has run from October the 1st to the 15th. I'm recording this on the 8th. So you'll get 8th and 9th. You'll be listening to it on the 10th. So you'll have about 5 days to go. You buy into the lottery, $10 a ticket for the lottery. All right. Now, if you get to be one of the 200 selected to go after a Goliath, the fee is $150. So you pay $10 for your chance, and then you pay $150 if you win. You get one ticket, that's it. That's for residents. If you're out of state or out of town or out of whatever, you're not a Floridian, it's $500 to buy that ticket. And it's non-transferable. No, you can't sell it and lottery it out. They've got it all numbered, and they know who you are. And if you get caught doing that, I wouldn't want to get caught doing that. Wow, fishing fines are ridiculous, so you don't want to mess with the wildlife people, that's for sure. So anyway, I sat down and started doing the math, and I think it's a March opening for this next year. And there's heavily selected areas and places you cannot go and places you cannot fish for Goliath. So, I mean, you really have to look at the maps and the drawings and all the crazy stuff showing you where you can and cannot do this. And there's a limited slot limit on these things too, just so you know. So let's say they get 500 hits on the lottery. I bet there's going to be more. That's $5,000 right there. That's if they get 500 hits. I suspect that there will be more. Now, if they only get locals, just hypothetically, that's 150 times 200. That's $30,000. So just for setting this up, using what I think are minimal numbers on the amount of lottery tickets, that's $35,000. What the hell? Where in the hell is this going? Who gets that money? They haven't mentioned much about it. That's why I'm asking. Is it research? Are they going to buy new boats? Are they going to get another couple one patrol officer, an extra officer. How are they going to, anyway, it's something that bothers me. Now let's just take it a tiny step further. Let's say there are some out-of-town people that went and decide to go ahead and plop down the 500. That could jump it up another $4,000 or $5,000 just with 10 people. Yeah. I want to know where the money's going. FWC, if you're listening to this, I would love for you to post an explanation on where you plan to spend the money. And then there's a new snook regions created to control the snook population in Florida. What used to be 2 areas is now 9. Ay, ay, ay. 9 different areas for snook rules. Each region is going to have its own rules for season, size, limits, bag limits, etc., etc., etc. Right, as I like to say. I just have no idea. And the map is really confusing in regards to the keys. Somehow the entire chain is now part of Southwest Florida. You heard it right, Southwest. I'm guessing that no one in the planning office of the FWC knows where Key Largo is. Might want to try Southeast Florida, just 50 miles south of Miami on the East Coast. I'm serious. Sometimes I really wonder. And the older I get, the more I wonder. Yeah, so I'm going back to Southwest Florida, and I didn't even know I was going. I'll just use the word goofy. So there you have it. That's some of the FWC news that popped this week. Everything is kind of weird, and Lord knows what they're going to do as we get into wintertime. We got to keep a close eye on these folks. I've always preached this, and I will continue to preach it. It's a really good idea to double check the rules and regulations before you go out on the water to go fishing to make sure that nothing changed yesterday, because by the time they get it in print and post it, you're already out there. It's also a good idea. You might want to invest in a phone application. I have a couple on my phone that I love, and you might want to get one of those so that you can look at it and you can double check them as long as you got phone service. Remember that. If you're going to go out in the deep water or out far, out of phone range, you're going to need to do this at the dock. Load up the latest and the greatest regulations from the day before, I guess, or that morning, and then head on out. And at least then you've got the current stuff locked into your system. Let's talk about my favorite subject, fishing. Yeah. Oh, that's right. We have been talking that kind of good old fishing, where your troubles seem to fall by the wayside for several hours. This past Wednesday, I spent the morning fishing with an old friend of mine from Louisville. I've long referred to Gary as my fishing buddy. We met at work at a computer company way back when, and I've spent a ton of time, thanks to him, on creeks, lakes, tiny little streams, and things like that, going after smallmouth and really fun fish, things that this Florida boy had no idea could be that much fun to catch, especially hiking through the woods to go find them. We've also spent a great deal of time on bays and gulfs, and now we've added oceans. That's right. More about that in a minute. We hit the water early on Wednesday and headed to the backcountry in the Everglades National Park. Winds were supposed to die. It was breezy in the morning, but nothing ridiculous. The bay was fine crossing Blackwater Sounds, what I go across from where I live, and headed up into the Everglades National Park area. And as the day progressed, the winds got worse. I really, really should have been a meteorologist, because I had a feeling it was going to happen. I can smell it sometimes. I just know something's not right. And the fact that they said it was going to lie down, I absolutely had my doubts. It ramped up after 9 a.m. Let me tell you what, we had whitecaps. but we stayed. We're like, let's make the best of it. We made the run up here, which is 20-something miles. We're here. We might as well fish it. And we did. Good news is water temperature it was 83. Got a lot of trout, all of them small. I mean, a lot of trout. Between the two of us, I don't know, 15 apiece, so 30 trout, let's just say. Every one of them was 10 inches long except for one that was maybe 13. So it was crazy. I mean, really crazy. Usually other sizes are all mixed together. When you find sea trout in a batch like we found, it's almost always going to get a mix of and with a few larger ones, few over 15, in the slot size. But nope, not this time. I never frown on small size fish though in numbers. It means there'll be much bigger ones later, and hopefully plenty of them. What I really hate is a missed spawn. When you go out for a year, a whole season, or even season and a half, and you get nothing but large sea trout and nothing small, that'll be a big concern. That's true for almost any fish. Same thing with redfish and snook. You have that missing generation. That's a big concern. That's a big concern for game fishing. So I can't complain. Tons of little ones, that's okay. We decided to move west to a spot that had produced a lot of fish in past trips for me. This was Gary's first time up into this area. He's fished over in the Islamorada area quite a few times, but he'd never done it over here. So I kind of wanted to show it off and show him what was out there. We got over there, and I kind of knew right off the bat that this wasn't going to work. The closer I got to Tavernier and Pass down toward Islamorada, the muddier the water got, and I mean muddy. By that time, the wind had been blowing about 2 hours out of the northeast, and it was just really souping things up pretty good. I don't know, those of you that have ever seen a stream after a big rain up north and the clay comes up and just completely mucks up the entire stream. Well, that's what the entire bay looked like. We did not get a bite around the mangroves or anywhere. It was just like, nope, the fish left. So now the decision had to be made to run the opposite direction and go back toward home, because I knew that if I went back where I started in Blackwater Sound, that bottom is harder, it's rockier, it's grass, it's totally covered in grass. There's very little area for mud to get created, even in a wind. And sure enough, after making the long trek back into Blackwater, we headed north up into the top of Blackwater Sound, and the water was beautiful. It was clear. Fish were everywhere. We caught a whole mess of nice mangrove snapper. There were sharks running every which direction. So it turned out to not be a total bust, even though even up there, the wind was rocking and rolling on Blackwater Sound. And that's a pretty much of a contained bay with land all around it. So, yeah, it was busting out there. It really was. I have a fish story from that area. Something that's happened to me that's never happened before. I was tossing a lure, my usual soft plastic, the Gulp swimming mullet, the little white swimming mullet. So I tossed it up in there, and it got whacked. Let me back up. There was a big shark coming at us, and I thought, I'm going to catch the shark. What the hell? You ask friends that fish with me, you'll know that I'm noted for doing crazy things like this on light tackle. It's, let's see if I can get a shark on. Let's see if I can actually land it on tackle that was made for snapper fishing in the bushes, quite frankly. Well, I tossed it at this big old shark, and I got hit, and I set, and I'm like, this thing isn't even fighting. He thinks I'm pretending. And lo and behold, the shark kept going, but my line stayed put. I'm like, what in the world? And what had happened was the remora he was carrying jumped off and nailed my lure. Now, that ain't never happened to me before. About a 20-inch remora. Nice, good size. He just decided that if the shark wasn't going to eat it, he was. So I caught this really cool remora off the back of a shark. There's a fish story for you. So after getting banged around all day, we decided to take Thursday. I decided to take Thursday off. I think Gary probably would have gone again. He was ate up by this whole thing. I thought I got to rest my bones. That was a very rough 46 miles. I think we put on the boat. Yeah. So we waited for the calm winds. We had heard that Friday was supposed to be good. Well, guess what? The weatherman got it right. Oh my gosh. Right at dawn. You could tell right away. It was dead still in the morning. Now, I have learned something about the Atlantic Ocean. That's where we were running to that day. I told Gary, I said, we got to try outside. We got to at least go take a look, because the winds completely died last night. So right at dawn, we headed out of Largo Sound. That's where I live. I live on Largo Sound. We headed out of Largo Sound. We headed east through a beautiful channel that runs you out to the Atlantic Ocean. And I've done this quite a bit after big winds, and have found that the ocean still is a bit lumpy, I'll call it, with big leftover swells, these fun, yeah, like surf's up. They're real far apart. These swells can be 40, 50 seconds apart. Almost, but boy, they're big when they come. So I thought, let's go look. Let's just go see what's going on. We got around the corner, and Gary had a smile on his face. So did I, because we knew we'd be able to make that 7-mile run out there to the edge at the 100-foot drop-off. No problem, in a flat skiff. So it was like, man, this just looks too good. I love technology. I'd gotten my Simrad replaced. Thank you, Bass Pro, for taking such good care of me after my Simrad decided that it just didn't want to turn on anymore. They took good care of me. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate everything you all did there at Bass Pro. Unfortunately, my old numbers weren't in the replacement unit, so I had to start plucking stuff into, as quickly as I just stick some local numbers. Because once I get out there on that particular area of the ocean, I have fished that reef and that reef line enough to kind of know where I am. And so that's what I did. On site, the water looked great, except for one little tiny setback. The tide movement wasn't all that great. We were literally on the half moon on Friday. And that means the water just is not going to progress all that fast in or out. Long, slow tides. But the fish ate. I mean, that's the good news. The bad news is we had to move quite a bit. But that wasn't really all that bad. We'd get about 4 or 5 fish, and then the bite would be over, and then it was back to technology. I use a Minn Kota Tarova, one of those things. Trolling motor. I'll be okay, don't worry. It's early here this morning. So the Tarova is really cool. It's got spot lock on it, which basically is an anchoring system. If you're not familiar with that, check it out. So if you got an old trolling motor and you're thinking about updating, man, these are the cat's meow when it comes to locking yourself on a spot that's too deep to drop the power pole down. So if you're over in the Gulf of Mexico and you're going to go out, do some snapper fishing out there in the 30-foot area on the hard bottom, or in our cases, the Atlantic Ocean, you're going to hit that water out there that all those patch reefs are 20-something feet to 30-something feet deep. So that's where the spot lock comes in extremely handy. It's a wonderful tool. Basically, you've got the trolling motor in the water. You pull up on the area that you want to get on. You can use your power motor or the trolling motor to do this, of course. And you hit a little anchor button on there, and it puts you right on the spot and holds you there the whole time. It's really remarkable. So like I said, I love technology. So what we were doing was we'd catch 4 or 5 fish, and then I would simply take the spot lock off on the trolling motor and just trolling motor over just a little ways on the edge. It might be from 65 feet to 70 or from 70 back to 50 feet, and we'd catch 1 or 2 or 3 more fish. And the morning was pretty much like that. We eventually wound up going back onto the reef itself in about, I think it was around 28 feet, 26 feet. And that's when we really got into the fish. They cooperated pretty good. We got a mess of good old-fashioned blue stripe grunts, blue stripe grunts. More than enough to put some in the box for tacos later. I love fish tacos, and let me tell you what, the grunts are wonderful for that. Porgies, a couple yellowtails, a couple hogfish. Boy, I lost a keeper at the side of the boat on the hogfish. Almost made me cry right there on the spot. And an enormous collection of parrotfish, one of which I posted a picture on my Facebook page. It's a blue parrot. Kind of unusual. For me, it was seriously unusual. I think it's the first one I've ever caught. I've caught all the little green and orange and pinks and all those other color ones that you see out there. And you'll find that there are many, many varieties of parrotfish. They're beautifully colored. They're fun to catch. I've never eaten one. Most people say you don't, so I'm not. No, no, I'm not. Who knows? But that blue one was huge. I thought I had a great big grouper on. I really did. I mean, it was that kind of fight. I think that was in close to 70 feet of water, and I'd get it up and go down. I thought, man, I've got the nicest grouper I've ever caught out here. And pops up, and there's this bright blue fish that probably was in the 12-pound range. I mean, let's just say 10 to 15, somewhere in that area. I didn't weigh it. Got a nice picture of it, though. Thank you, Gary. But man, oh man, that was just one. To me, that was a highlight. I really like trips when you get something weird and unusual and something that you've never seen before. And that was one I've never caught before. So there you go. Another one off the bucket list. This inshore fisherman also learned something that day. A chum bag is just about useless when there's no current. Duh. You guys that fish offshore are laughing now. Yeah, you dummy. You put it in the water, there's no current, no chum comes out of the chum bag. It just sits there like a block of goo. Unless you shake it, you might shake a little bit out of it. So we had this beautiful Menhaden. I love to get the Menhaden blocks and put them in there. Of course, nothing was coming out. So got to have tide movement. Note to self, So it was better off taking shrimp that we had. We had bags of frozen shrimp. I was just breaking pieces and dropping them and watching them float down. That pretty much is what got the fish stirred up when we got up into the 28 to, say, 32, 33 foot of water. So it worked pretty good. Let's see. Oh, Gary got a bucket list thing done today. Gary had never been in the Atlantic Ocean fishing off a flats boat. So there you go. It's quite an experience. You don't do a lot of standing. You do a lot of sitting. just so you know, you don't want to wind up in the water. Equipment. We used heavy spin rods, pin reels. The rods were Key Largos. Thank you. Man, Key Largo rods are awesome. I'm crazy about them, obviously. Talked about it before. Again, with the pin reels, pin 40s, and 20-pound braid, dropper rigs tied on. I had to get on YouTube to refresh my tying skills for droppers. It has been a long, long time since I tied a dropper rig. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this is a single piece of mono. In this case, it was fluoro. It was a 4-foot piece of 40-pound fluoro. And you basically can use the one piece by looping and looping and looping and looping and make a dropper rig. And what a dropper rig is a straight line with a loop hanging off to the side of it, perpendicular to it, that you can put a hook on. And that way you hook a weight to the bottom, tie the top to your fishing line, drop it to the bottom, and now you have this little line hanging off the side. I don't do double droppers. They're too much trouble with tangling and weirdness, although you could catch two fish at once. I mean, there is that positive side. But I like the single. What makes dropper rigs so wonderful is if you have a snap swivel at the very bottom of it that you can change the weights on. So on a no tide day, the weight was light. On heavier tide days, you can put a bigger weight at the bottom. So if you fish offshore, check out dropper rigs and how to tie a dropper rig. It's really great. And we had a lot of luck. We didn't change them all day. That's what we used the entire time we were out there with good old frozen shrimp. I used live shrimp out there one time before, and quite honestly, it was a huge waste of money. Live shrimp's expensive, certainly by the dozen, whereas frozen is a whole lot cheaper. I just look for quality frozen. There are many, many tackle shops around here that bag their own shrimp. So those, they get live shrimp, and as the shrimp start to not look so good, or it's the end of the day and they know it's not going to last, they bag it and they put it in the freezer and they sell it. I go over here to Captain Pete's Tackle. I get them out of their freezer. They're great. They don't stink when you open it. It's like, oh, this is what I used to do. I mean, I used to buy shrimp as a guide and take the leftovers home and freeze it, and then bring it back and use it for chum and for fishing later on, because it's much, much fresher than the ones that are sold by corporations in a bag. Those are usually pretty nasty, and they fall apart. Those fall apart when you put them on the hook. So anyway, it's a cheaper way to go. I'd take live pilchards out there if I was young and could still throw a net. I mean, that's the way to really get fish up on the reef. But, whatever. I'm hoping we'll get out there again in the coming week. I'll have more reports on the next one. We'll see what happens. There's another front headed this way that might stall over Miami. Oh, joy. And before I go, I want to tell you about a lure I found. I made a little note of this, so let me run this by you instead of waiting until next week. Have you seen the new lures from Nomad Design called Vertex Swim Vibes? It's Vertex, Vertex Swim Vibes. Nomad Design. This seriously caught my attention. I get all kinds of random emails, these things that just pop up on the screen, and most of them I just click right through, delete, just get rid of them. That one I stopped on because I've never really seen anything quite like this. And that was, of course, was mentioned in the literature. You ain't seen one of these. And I was like, you're damn right I haven't. That's really cool. It's a hard, rubbery plastic It's shaped like every other typical fat lure, I call, like your mirror lures, your 17 MRs, your 19 MRs, that kind of stuff. Beautifully manufactured, beautiful colors in clear plastic. So the outside is clear, the inside holds the color. It has a wicked little tail that's a V tail, but it's just little tiny strips of material. It doesn't have, like, they're not connected, so it doesn't look like a fish fin on the back. You have to see it to believe it. Go online to their website and check it out. Again, Vertex Swim Vibes. It's Nomad Design is the name of the company. That's probably where you want to head to find these things. They come in all different weights, as little as 2 ounces, all the way up to, what was the biggest one I saw? I think it was around 3.5 to 4 ounces, good down to, I think it's at 200 feet. So you can actually use these in the ocean. The lighter ones, obviously, in the backcountry. They're double trebled or singled hook. I'll probably take the trebles off and put singles on there. I will give you a future report. I got a few on order. I fell for it. I have to try these things. They just look too good to pass up. Okay, so now it's time to go fishing. October's a favorite month of mine, and as long as the wind don't blow and the rains don't come a-pouring down, I'll be on the water with a smile on my face. I will talk to you all next week. Thanks much for listening. A heartfelt thanks to all my listeners who have supported my podcast. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. The website's catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's to come. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.